Welcome to Roofing It Right with Dave and Wally. I'm Wally. Dave couldn't make it with me today, but I got a guest here joining me today, Chino Alvarado. Tell me what you want to talk about today.
Well, when I'm out in the field doing roof inspections, a lot of the times, one of the biggest questions I get actually is, how do we flash these things a lot easier, which is more productive?
Because this is a cone stack flashing, right? The BVAC, because it's cylindrical, but it's smaller at the top than it is at the bottom.
Yeah, and then we do got our split pipe boots.
Right, yeah.
Sometimes we run out of them or there's not.
They're in the middle of
on site.
nowhere.
Middle of nowhere, and we need to flash this now. You know, when I get out there, I got guys, I mean, they're stripping it into pieces, and that's very time consuming.
So a round pipe's pretty simple.
Real
Straight. Measure the bottom, side, and the top is a pretty simple measurement. This is a little more complicated. This originally, as you guys understand, this would be installed on the roof. The insulation is going to be cut around this. So in the real world, we have to, all of our systems, we've talked about this in our other videos, we'd have to have base attachment. So if my insulation ran under this, I'd have screws and plates all the way around this. This is going to be my target piece. Okay, my target piece is going to cover up those screws and plates. Now, when you install this, you want this target piece to run up the pipe a minimum of an inch. Chino, what's our minimum hand weld?
Between an inch and inch and a half.
So this is the only place you can really get by with an inch, technically a full inch weld. The reason being is my wrap is going to come up here, it's going to flare out an inch. Now I've seen people flare this out 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. If you flare that out that far, this is going to be so thin and on the outboard of that, it's probably not real good for it. So we would rather stay, say, an inch and stick close to this 55 mils. I think we've talked about it in other videos. Doesn't matter how many accessories we have, you will always have a roll of this on the roof, just for oddball stuff like this. So how we lay this out, I'm going to measure the base of this. We've always got ISO on the roof. So let's pretend this is my 4x8 piece of ISO. I'm going to square this up to my ISO. Roll it out a little bit. Now I've got a big T-square here because we're in a training center. Obviously my guys probably won't have this on the roof. But you need a straight edge. So I'm square here. Now I need a square line here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this T-square. If this is my 4-foot ISO out here, I'm going to come all the way out to the end. So on this line, I'm going to measure up 1 inch. I'll make a mark. The reason why I measure up 1 inch right here is because I'm going to draw a radius. If I don't come up 1 inch, depending on the size of the pipe, I may come off this.
I got it.
What's minimum flashing height? Any flashing, I think we talked about this in our other videos.
8 inches.
8 inches. So I could take this up 8 inches, and I could wrap this. But most people, what they want to do is they're going to take this all the way to the top. So I'm 12 inches to the top of this.
Okay.
Now you got to remember, I have to flare out an inch. So my total flashing height is going to be what?
Blue.
Blue?
Yeah.
13.
13. 13.
12 and
13.
1's 13.
13.
What
Sorry.
is blue?
I don't know. I got lost.
So I'm going to come up 13 inches. I'm going to make another mark. Okay, now what I want to do is I want to measure across the base of this. This is about, let's call that 7.5 inches. What do you call that? So this is my base, 7.5 inches. I've already measured up to the top. So let's call that what, 5?
5.
It's 5 inches.
Okay.
Got that?
Yes.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this, I'm going to divide it in half. From this mark here, this 1 inch mark, this is going to be my base measurement. What's half of 7.5? 3 3/4?
Yep.
I'm going to make a little mark. Half of 5 is what?
2.5.
2.5. All right. So I'm going to take my straight edge. I'm going to kind of connect the dots here. See right here? I'm going to go all the way up to this line right here.
So that's very important.
Right.
You connect the dots. It's where it meets up on top.
Exactly. So I can
Okay.
put an X here. I'll just draw the line. Here's where these two lines intersect.
Okay.
With me so far?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now you can take a chalk line. You can take a piece of string, whatever. I need you to hold that line on there, and I want you to pull it nice and tight. If this doesn't work, it's your fault. Pull it tighter.
Tighter.
There, you got it?
Got it.
Okay, pull me up. Remember that mark I made over here at 2.5? Pull it nice and tight. Got it?
Got it.
There essentially is my wrap. Now, I could cut this out, bring it to the pipe, and wrap it around, and I leave myself about 3 inches to weld for a lap, right? So I can make one more measurement, measure around the base of this, which is, let's call that 26 inches.
26.
Okay, I'm going to add 3 inches to give myself something to weld to. So 14.5 It's half a 29. I'll put 14 and a half on my center line.
Okay.
My tape touches here. The 29 is down here. Okay, make a little mark.
Look at that. Connecting the dots again.
Connecting the dots again. There. Now this is my wrap. I've saved a little bit of material. Come here and cut this out. Okay, now check it on the pipe. Now remember, if you did this wrong, it's your fault. There we go.
Now I have a question though.
Okay.
Let's say I got 12 of these.
Okay.
Do I got to do this math the whole time?
If I've got 12 of these, why not take this, use as a template?
Does it make sense?
Then we come on the next pipe, you ain't got to go through all this. Or give it to the guy you just hired. He wants to learn a little bit, you can kind of show him this, or you can just give him to him trace them out.
That works for me.
And I would do the same thing with the target. That way they all look the same.
They all look the same.
So here's the tricky part. So now we got to heat this up and flare it. There's a fine line to stretching this. You want to stretch it enough so it flares out, but you don't want to overstretch it where you'll rip it. Okay, I'm going to turn my gun on. Turn about 7 or 8. So a lot of guys I see try to do, they try and, so we need an inch. It has to flare out. So they try and heat this whole thing up and go back and try and stretch the whole inch. All I do is I heat up about 3 or 4 inches at a time, and I pull the outside. The rest will come with it. The trick is you can kind of start to see it deform. That's when you know it's heated up enough where you could stretch it. See how it starts to deform a little bit? Just grab it, just start pulling. Heat up a little more. Stretch it. I'm going to just bring it to the pipe once in a while just to check it, see how it's fitting. See how that's working?
That's looking good.
Yeah, and I'm just going to work my way around this pipe. Okay, so we've got this all stretched out, and this is what it should look like. Let's do one final fit. Bring it to the pipe. What do you think? Sure it beats more than going on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 pieces, right?
Yeah.
But again, if we had an accessory, how many of these could I have done with a split pipe and reverse and doing this by hand? Let me ask you another question, Chino. When this is all done, this is all welded, this is all wrapped. What has to be at the top of this?
A clamp.
Have you ever seen what happens to something that's smaller at the top when you try and clamp it?
Yeah, it starts to ride up on you.
Right. I've seen some guys haven't told me, well, I take a zip screw and I put through everything.
Wow.
Yeah, you really don't want to do that because that probably could cause issues down the road. So let's say this is all welded. Get some reinforced membrane,
All right.
maybe inch wide, couple inches long. Once this is on the pipe, I'm going to weld it to the pipe, to the wrap, okay? I'm going to weld this to itself. Maybe 3 or 4 of these, make like belt loops. So
All
where's
right.
my clamp going to go now?
Go right through with it, right in there.
Yeah. And when it's all done, you got the water block behind your clamp and your all-purpose. I could take the storm collar and just kind of hide everything. Nobody ever see it.
There you go.
Yeah. Gino, here's our finished wrap. You can see we're about an inch on. We have an inch on the flat. We have an inch up the wrap. Here's our belt loops. Slid our clamp through there. Before we clamp it down, we're going to get some water block behind there. Put our all-purpose on top, and then we're going to clamp it down.
This looks great, Wally. Real good. Once again, thank you for joining us on this segment on how to properly flash a cone flashing on Roofing It Right with Dave and Wally. Dave wasn't here, so it's the Wally and Chino show.
I know you want top billing, right?
Yes.
Chino and Wally.
Chino and Wally. Please join us on future videos at our website. Y también, por favor, tenemos estos videos en español que nos va a ayudar para poder hacer los detalles.